welcome to another episode of Free Code Friday. My name is Jason Bach, and this is episode 23, I believe. I think it's 23. Pretty sure it's 23. But in any event, what I'm going to do in this episode, which might be pretty quick, of course I say that, and then it isn't, but what I want to do in this episode is investigate some timing, some performance with a technique that I ran across, and I've known about it, but I ran across it as I was reviewing some code, so to speak. I'll explain what I mean in a moment, and just see, is it better? I know I was going to start doing two projects and start working on them, but I don't know if the phrase is I got nerd sniped, but I saw this and I got distracted and I got curious. So I'm going to take a look at this and see if my intuition is correct or I'm completely off base. So the scenario, the situation that came up was I've been teaching a course internally at Magenic on ASP.NET Core. And one of the requirements is at the end of the course is to come up with something, a project, blog article, video, whatever, something that conveys something related to the course material or that you want to dive deeper on. So somebody at Magenic, and I'll call him out, not for any bad reason, just because I will. He's over on my other screen here. Stuart, I'm going to say his name wrong, Cellier, but his name Stuart, and he's recently just joined Magenic a couple months ago, but he's been doing software development stuff for many, many years. So he actually created I think it's basically an adapter to Log4net to ASP.NET Core, which is kind of interesting. Mostly the loggers I use in .NET these days are Serolog or Nlog. Log4net kind of fell by the wayside for me years ago. It just, I think the license that it had was a little too restrictive, and it worked, but other ones came up and just stopped using it for no better reason. So okay, fine, but I can see where this is useful, because if you have code that's currently using Log4net that's been around for a while and you want to move to .NET Core, this gives you that adaptive capability. So let me just pull this over here, and so that's where if you see the GitHub link there, that's where you can go take a look at all this. It's pretty interesting. It was fun to see the work invested into this. But the one thing that caught my eye as we were reviewing it was this code here. And let me actually scroll in a little bit, zoom in a little bit. And I kind of asked, what is this? And I don't want to speak out of turn in the sense that I don't want to misquote him, but his point was that he didn't really like switch statements. And I get it. Switch statements in C# have always felt a little old, archaic, weird, just ugh, like there's got to be better ways. Though it's interesting that in C# 7 and apparently in C# 8, the switch statement is getting much love. It's getting a lot of improvements, a lot of modernization, more capabilities for pattern matching, which makes me happier. Not because I love switch, it's making it feel like it's actually useful, beneficial, and gets rid of some of the old cruftiness from it. So to that point, though, he said, well, what he usually uses is some kind of like dictionary, a static read-only dictionary that you can use to basically say, if I have this value, then do this. Okay. Now, I saw this and I went, well, a switch statement would be faster, right? Or would it? Would a switch statement actually be faster than this? If I set up something that's akin to this as a switch statement, it would be faster. Now, one thing to notice here too is that the trace and the debug actually end up doing the same thing. Okay, so actually, is this the one? Yeah, this is the one I'm actually probably going to look at. It doesn't really matter. The technique is the point here, which is if I have something that I'm switching on, some value, then what do? It could be either an action, it could be a func, but that's that encapsulation of the code that says, based on this value, do something. So the trace and debug here, basically, if you had case, and then they both do like return is debug enabled. Okay. So, okay, fine. But now I have an extra entry in my dictionary. So part of me is like, well, now you have the overhead of a dictionary for, whatever overhead there is to that. And then, um, is it really quicker? Is it really faster than a switch statement would be? And we're probably talking, micro, if not nanoseconds difference here. But I got curious. I got curious because I wanted to determine, is my bias, is my preconceived notions getting in the way that this might actually be a better idea, or maybe it really isn't. And as I said many times in videos before, I've actually talked about using something like BenchmarkNet and performance, that there are things that are these real small optimizations that you can make, but that really won't help the overall performance of an application. Right now, I am on a gig where my focus is to look at long-running APIs, REST APIs, and determine what's bad about them. And primarily, it's their usage of the database. They're doing either long-running queries that aren't optimized, or they're doing many queries where they should be doing joins and doing less to the database at instead of doing n queries, maybe doing one. So it's not really a EF problem per se. It's just a fundamental, hey, I'm using a database. That's going to be a network call. And if I do this n times, if I could do it once, would that be faster? There wasn't a lot of thought put into that. And so now they're paying the price. And also, hey, this worked locally. But if you use it against a production-sized database where the size will be an order or 2 or 3 times bigger in magnitude than what you have running locally, well, then the performance is going to be much different. Okay, so I've been working on this a lot, and as I start, trying to focus in and saying where is the actual hot spots and where are the problems in the code, sometimes I'll see parts of code that go, that should probably be different, that could be optimized, that could probably be made better. But in the large, the relatively size speaking, is that actually going to make a difference if you change that? Because changing this code might shave off an order of magnitude in nanoseconds, but we're talking milliseconds or even seconds that some of these things are taking. So that's where you got to focus first. That, especially if this is only being called a small amount of times. So that's why you always have to do profiling. You have to make sure that what are you targeting is the actual correct right thing. All that said, I still look at things like this and I get curious and I'm like, well, what's the right way to do it? So that's what I'm going to try to do today. We're going to use benchmark.net as always. So we'll pull that over here. Put this up. I started actually coding this. I'm like, wait, stop. I actually have to do this in the video. I do need to be a little, do a little prep work, especially if I start doing things with those 2 projects, Justari and DubSharp, but the whole point of this is to fall, to just, how do I actually work in real time on a day-to-day basis? And that means I'm looking things up. I'm forgetting how a switch statement works. I'm forgetting how, just basic things happen. That's the way it is. And I want to do this in that way because I don't want to be so polished. I don't want to be like when I do a presentation, I try to be prepared. I try to have my slides, they're all ready. All my demos are there, and I can show things to illustrate and to demonstrate to the crowd that these are how things work. If I start going off the beaten path, that's fine, but then that can be a little bit harder. So this is just to, in a way, show, hey, things can go badly, and I don't remember how all these things works at times off the top of my head, and that's okay. That's all right. So how am I going to do this? I basically want to do I called this switch versus dictionary. I'm also going to throw in a third case. I actually named this project badly. I should have called it, evaluation strategies or something like that. I'm only on my second cup of coffee. It's the morning, so I haven't had a lot of thought into this. But I'm going to probably do this as an if statement as well. And I could probably go very far deep in this and do all these tips and kinds of what if scenarios. But we're just going to start off slow. Okay, so what do I need to do? I'm looking at his code over here on my other screen. And he's got a dictionary with enabled functions, and it's using ilog. And I don't want to use, I don't necessarily want to use something like log for anything like that. I want to keep that out of the picture, so to speak. So let's back this up for a second. And let's make a public seal class. You have something called, I'll just call it log, okay? And then there's a bunch of bool is debug enabled. And then we got, how many more of these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come on, copy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this is, oh yeah, because he has the two. Okay, never mind. So he has debug, is warn, is error, info, and fatal. Okay, info, and is fatal. Okay, and then I need a public log is debug enabled. Could have probably thought this 5. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do that little trick here. Yes, sick trick, bro. Hold on, just one sec. Get that. This is gonna be info, warn, error, and fatal. Warn, error, and fatal. Okay, so then we're going to do this debug, this dot is warn, this dot is error, this dot is info, and this dot is fatal. That would have been fine. Is equal to is debug. No. Is debug enabled. Is warn. That one. And then we have the third one, which is error. No. And then it is info. That one is fatal. There. Just tuples. Using tuples like this is so cool. You can do all these assignments, and this I've tested before. This is exactly the same performance as if you'd assign them one by one. Okay, so cool. We got that. All right. So now I want to do a benchmark, and before I forget, I want to do a memory diagnoser. And then I have to look at the. Oh, I'll get to that in a moment. I don't want to forget though. I think they're called CLR jobs. I want to have different targets, and then I think I actually have to switch the proj file to have different target frameworks or whatever. So anyway, benchmarks. Let's say public bool is enabled based on a log level. So I need a log level. Public enum log level. What is there? There's trace, debug, warning, error, information, and critical. Okay. I'd also put these in separate files, but that's for what I'm doing right now. Log level. Okay. So is enabled using a dictionary. And we'll come back to implementing this in a second. So what I want to have is a private read only. And he makes it a static. So I'll honor that. Dictionary. Oh, okay. There we go. Why are you being a... Am I not spelling right? Yeah, it's just in generic. Why would you... whatever. Log level, and then a... log level and then a func of a log bool. There you go. Okay. Is enabled functions equals new dictionary. I wish this was a little smarter here. Like, I've already declared what's there, although it may have gotten confused because I didn't put system in for the. Okay, so now I got to actually assign all these. So we're going to do that. And we're going to say, you know, I can just probably copy now what he did. Though his formatting with his code was a little weird. He put spaces in like certain locations, which no, go away. Like, who codes like this? Come on, go back now. Come here. Okay, let's get rid of some of the space here because it's noise and I don't like it. Okay, so yeah, see, this also just drives the crap out of me. Yeah, it just drives me nuts when people try to do this lining up of code, and it's like, oh, it looks neater, but yeah, and then you got to maintain that as you add new things. And I know there's helpers for it, but that actually this looks better to me, which people may find is odd, but this does look better to me. Okay, good. Now you have a benchmark saying given a, and I can do this as this. I can say comparing cases dot is enable. Nope, is enable functions of the level, and then that should just be a log. So I actually have to have, okay, I need to create a log. Let me just pass a null for a second, even though that's awful. Okay, so now I need to have a log created. So we'll say private read only. Find static. Log, new log. We're just going to do true, false, false, true, true. It doesn't really matter. And then we'll pass in here a comparing cases log. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to do this as is enabled using switch based on a log level. And this I can't do this way. I gotta say switch on the level, case, log level, and then trace and debug are the same. Trace, case, log, level, debug, and both of these are return. Now in this case I don't have the thing passed into me, it's comparing cases dot log dot is debug enabled. Case, log level warning, and all these other ones are just like return. Let me copy that. Is warn enabled, case, log level error, return. That's error, right? Is error, yeah. Case log level, information, return. That is info enabled, and then case log level. Critical, nope, critical, that is going to be return is critical. No, fatal, okay. And what are you complaining about? Not all copass, default, throw new, valid. Isn't there an enum value exception? There is. I know there's. No, I'm getting distracted again. .NET enum invalid there's actually a specific one in .NET. No, not invalid cast. Enum, valid enum argument exception. Valid enum, okay, so valid enum, but that's an argument. Okay, well, there you go. And now that gets, okay, so there's also potentially an error here that if you, because you can actually coerce C# that if you're passing in like an enum, you can just say cast 300 to a log level, pass it in, and it works. But then this dictionary would fail because there's no key at that, there's no key of that value. So that would be bad. Okay, so I think that all works. Now I'm just going to do it with an if statement. Okay, so we're going to have one more value here of is enabled using, no, if. So now I want to say if level equals log level trace, or it equals debug. Get rid of all that. Pull that in there. Else if equals that. Do that. Else if level equals that. Do this. Else if level equals, oh, come on. Mad typing skills this morning. That, and then else if level equals, come on, come over here. There you go. Else, the bad case. All right, so now we've got those. Now what I want to do is also have some kind of parameter, and I know benchmark.net is a way to do params, or actually arguments, intro arguments, and these can all be, yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, that's interesting. What is it doing here? Yeah, I don't know if I want to use arguments or parameters. Because I want to, I think parameters is what I'm looking for. Let's try that. We're just going to go with parameters for now. So we have a public I enumerable of log level, level values. Yeah. I could do like yield returns here too, but I'm just gonna log level. Let's wait. Did I? Oh yeah, I screwed that up. New log level of critical. Debug ll error information ll dot ll dot warning. Okay, that should be enough for that. And then I need a param source, which is name of level values, and that is a public log level of crap. So those aren't actually going to get passed in as... Right, that's all you need. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So these aren't actually going to get passed in. They're going to come in as comparing, no, this dot, right? Yeah, this dot level. Okay, and then this goes away, and you switch on this. And then this goes away. No. That goes away. Oh, dear God. And block. And that should be all those. Okay. All right. So I think if I come back over here, now I can say benchmark runner. Yeah. Is it run? That's the generic. Yeah. Comparing cases. There. And we can do that. All right. So this should all run. Gotta make sure that I'm actually in release mode, otherwise you'll yell at me. Of course, there could be some logic things in here. This is one of the things with benchmark.net that I wish there would be a way to say, if I ran this, what's the output, or does it actually logically make sense so that they're all doing the same thing? So I think they are, but in any event. And then there's this thing, CLR jobs, right? But you can, jobs. Yeah, the environment. Runtime, full .NET Framework and core. That's what I want. And there's a whole bunch of other things you can pass in. Attribute style. Oh yeah, so it's CLR job, core job. Okay, yeah, CLR job and then core job. Okay. Now if you do this though, I think if I remember right, you have to change your environment. So if I come here and I say edit, the heck? I didn't mean to do that, I meant to do this. Edit frameworks, and then is it a, I forgot. Let's come over here and say .NET target frameworks element. Yeah. So just tell me, how do I do this? Yeah, it's a semicolon. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, sure. That's what I thought. Totally thought that. All right, so let's reload all, whatever. Build. And run. Let's see if this blows up in my face first. Now, if this does run, it's going to take a little while, so then I will cut the video because that's just annoying. Done. Failed to build in parallel. Okay. All right, it's off to the races doing something. Of course, it's going to have to do for all the benchmark methods, all the different parameters. So, yeah, this could take some time. But as I've talked about before, I think in a previous video, I actually cut because it was just, it was going to be boring and way too long. And I think the thing I'm concerned about is that if this actually gets through both jobs, the CLR job and the core job. So I'm going to take just a pause here. And if it fails, I will come back and try to figure out what it fails and then run it again. So I will be back. All right, I am back. That took a lot longer than I thought. I really didn't think through the combinations and permutations and everything like that. That was, oof. Had to wait a little bit, but finally got done. You can probably, if you see the time on the lower right there, you can guess as to how long it took. But it all finished, and I threw it up into Notepad++ here. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So, as you can see here, what it did is it said, here's the method with the type of job. So that's targeting .NET Framework, log level critical, what's the time. And none of this should really be surprising. What I actually, in retrospect, what I forgot to do, and I'm not going to do it right now, but what I forgot to do is put in a baseline. Because in some ways I didn't really know what the baseline would be. Notice that none of these are saying anything got allocated, but that's not quite true. The dictionary does have some allocation overhead to it, so is what it is. But it's not surprising that the dictionary approach is an order of magnitude slower. We're talking nanoseconds, though. We're not talking some, second level difference here. This is just nanoseconds, and this is not surprising to me. So, the switch and the if, there really isn't that much difference here. It's kind of interesting that, no, that trend doesn't really hold. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's really any difference between the CLR and and core. It does appear that core, the dictionary approach, is slightly faster than if you did it in the .NET Framework, which, who knows, reasons, but it is what it is. Do all the values come in? Critical, debug, error, information, trace, and warning. Okay, they all did. So yeah, I mean, it's clear that using a switch or an if is just, they're going to be faster. The differences between them, sometimes the switch is faster, sometimes if is faster, but it's negligible. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's really going to be any solid difference between them. I could go off and keep doing more and more of this. What happens if I add more into the dictionary, other switch cases? But wow, my God, this took a lot longer than I expected it to. So I'm not going to do that. But this is, again, why doing things like, is something faster? I thought a switch would be faster than a dictionary. Almost convinced of it. But now, excuse me. Whew. But now I have numbers. Now I have proof. I can say, yes, this actually was, a faster way of doing it. Wow, where did these sneezes come from? I have no idea. But now I have numbers that say, yes, this is, woof, that's 4. What the heck? But now I have numbers that say, yes, this is a faster way of doing it. It really comes down to preference then, I guess. Is if you look at the code and I say, well, is that more readable than, and then subsequently doing this compared to this, or, something like the if statement here. I guess it comes to personal preference at that scenario, in that case. Either way, if you're going to add a new value, you have to update this, or you're going to have to update this. I personally like this a little better, in the sense that if I have the same path for 2 or more values, it seems a little bit easier to read it this way, but that's, again, just my personal preference. I would not end up, at the end of the day, doing it this way. It's a little cute. I get the point of it. In some ways it is more readable, but this works the same exact way. It is going to be faster, and switch or if, either way, go with that. So these are the things I think that we have to do as developers in general, always looking at the techniques that we're doing, always questioning, is what we're doing the right way, and how do we define right? There's not just performance here, maintainability and all these other things come into play, but that's what we have to do as developers. We want to keep finding the best way to write our code. And performance is definitely one aspect of what is best. So I'm going to stop here for now, and next time I will definitely I think I'm going to start working on the Dub Sharp compiler is the next video I'm going to be working on. So just going to drop this and say, well, I did my work. I think at least I did enough work to say this is the way to look at it. And of course, you could go off and do all sorts of cases here, but it takes a long time to even run this series of tests. So I'm going to leave it now. So thanks for watching. Leave any comments, questions in the section below. See you in the next video.